Hey everybody, so this is a bike I built a little while back. It's the new Trek SLR, the Emonda SLR I should say. Lightest production frame on the market as of right this minute, 640 grams I believe. So there's a few little changes from the older versions, the little chain catcher and the cable guide system there, and a couple other little minor changes, but anyway, this is a Project 1 bike, which Project 1 is Trek's kind of their custom. Basically, you can pick the parts and paint scheme and stuff like that. So it's pretty basic, nothing super fancy, but all pretty solid, pretty sweet stuff there. It's got the full Derailleur 9100 Derailleur and carbon bars, Aeolus 3 wheels, and a couple other little Trick random bits and stuff. But these are some of the little the cable stops and things that are a little different. Some little options there for if you were going to run Di2 or standard or whatever. So they block off plate there if you're doing the E-tap. But just kind of highlighting a few of the features on this particular bike. This is the direct mount brake system and the carbon specific pads. And I did another bike actually just yesterday, which I kind of made a little video of that as well, which it's basically the same model bike but with the hydraulic Durace disc brakes. So I'll get that one posted up here pretty soon. Anyway, just swapping out the pads here. A couple little tips on switching out pads. It seems to be a lot of people hate to do it, switching wheels back and forth, but if you kind of keep the pad specific and you don't take the little screws all the way out, normally if you turn them back them out about 4 turns, that works pretty well to keep the screw in place, slide the pad in and out, and it's pretty simple procedure actually. So I don't know, maybe I'll make a video on that some point soon. But anyway, it's got a little spring and a little jig that kind of positions the brake post to make it a little easier to get them started. So it is a little tricky. You can get these things started crooked, get the bolts started crooked into the mounts on the frame or the fork there if you're not careful. So that's something you want to be really careful on these is the little jig piece makes it a little easier. You don't have to have those, but it does kind of get everything started a little straighter. Just get a couple turns in, then pull the little pieces out, and then cinch it down all the way from there. You're good to go. Pretty easy mounting setup, as far as having them centered, I guess you could say. And then the bottom bracket, it's the BB86 system where the bearings basically pressed directly into the frame. This is kind of a newer version. I'm seeing that, I don't know if this is a Shimano actual part or this is just something Trek's doing, but it's got the little, I don't know what the material is, it's like a plastic cover over the bearings now, so the spindle, the steel off the spindle and then the inner race of the bearing, which is steel, are now kind of separated by a little plastic piece, so kind of cuts down on some of the noise and I guess possible corrosion that can occur as well. So that's the little tool there to my little Shimano. It's a little Shimano tool actually, a little Shimano bearing press. But I'm going to put that little dust cap in there first. You've got to be aware on some frames there is a little at some frames, I know some of the cyclocross frames, there's a little bolt that does the cable hanger, a dust cover that you gotta orient the little bottom bracket dust cap there a certain way or it'll interfere with the tip of that bolt. So just kind of a heads up on that. I think on these it doesn't really matter, put them in any other way, you just need to have it fully engaged before you press the bearings in like I'm doing here. So usually I like to press the bearings in one at a time, but the way this tool kind of holds the bearing, it's got a little shoulder that the bearing sits on, so there's pretty well no way you can do them. You could basically, I guess what I'm saying is you can do them at the same time and they're going to go in pretty straight. It's pretty idiot proof to make them start going in crooked. So I usually, with this little Shimano tool, I'll just do them both at the same time. And on these Treks, you want to just press that thing in till they just bottom out, and that's, you don't want to go any further or you'll damage the frame. But basically just get them to where they bottom out, clean it up, wipe your grease off, and it's nice little clean system there. Got the full carbon bars. The center part there is pretty shiny, so I like to put a little carbon prep on the faces of the the faceplate pieces of the stem, and then on the back side where it contacts as well. Just always a good idea to put some of that carbon paste, kind of keep it from, definitely helps keep those bars from slipping. I don't know, one other little thing, there's a little long Teflon tube there that you'll want to use when you're routing the shift cable there through the back of the frame. It's a little seat mast that you'll put onto it's kind of like a reverse. It doesn't have a seat post that fits into the frame. It's got a mast that fits over on top of the seat tube on the frame. So those come in different lengths. Put a little carbon prep inside of there, and then this is their little seat rail locking device here, I guess you could say. And kind of just from my experience in dealing with these, basically it's a chrome bolt, a chrome recess nut, and it's got some Loctite stuff on there. It looks like it's got a little bit of grease on there, but I like to grease this, the section between where the washer thread, moves on the flange of the bolt, and then really, this is just some Park assembly grease basically, but make sure you got plenty of grease on the bolt threads. And then I actually like to, some people will use the carbon prep on this, but I found it grips well enough without it, and I'll put a little film of grease on that and it helps keep it from creaking, popping, making noise and stuff. But it's plenty, the way those wedge things operate, they're plenty strong enough that they don't slip once you have the proper torque setting, and doesn't slip, doesn't creak. So that's the best way I found to put those on. So I'm just kind of piecing it together here, getting ready to put the saddle on. But that's just one little tip if you're working on one of these Trek seat masts that I found seems to get the optimal performance out of them. And so you just want to make sure everything's lined up straight before you really cinch the seat in. Front derailleur, that's the typical Shimano pieces there that come with the front derailleur. This is the piece that's going to fit up against the little braze-on. And it's a carbon braze-on on the frame, so that piece there just kind of spreads the load. I didn't dig deep enough at the time, so I just put the Shimano bolt with the little washer, but come to find out off camera, I found the actual bolt that Trek supplies with that little braze-on adapter thing. So put that on there. It's a little bigger flange, kind of spreads the load out. And this is a little newer chain guide. It's a little easier to set up. It basically cinches down on the frame down below, and then that part there, it's easier to get to really dial it in, get it set up right next to the chain. You don't want it to rub, but in the small ring, big cog in the back, you want it to just not rub. Anyway, there she is, all built up. This particular one came out to a little under 14.5 pounds, not too bad. Definitely felt light. I think it was a 58 centimeter frame, so not too bad for a bigger-ish bike. And yeah, that's gonna do it for this one. Like I said, I did the disc brake model, which I'll have that one up here soon. And yeah, questions, comments, feel free, subscribe, all those things. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.